Hi guys, Steve Stahlberg here with pinup number 25, one of the April rewards in my Patreon subscription. This one started out as a sketch a few years ago, another one of those, and then I polished it a bit, later a bit more, and so on, until I had this. Originally I had planned to make a 3D sculpt out of it in ZBrush. I had a whole base pedestal planned and everything. In this image I just cropped that off. It was bigger to begin with, and I was aiming for a kind of a sculpture look, but I don't know. I just left it alone because it never really clicked with me, I guess. So here I'm going to grab it and edit it and do some surgery and change it and see if I can't make something worthwhile out of it, at least pinup wise. So here's the reference I found. It's a bow wielding Amazons there, a statue of Artemis and a crab, some drapery reference. Most of this I ended up not really using actually in the end. The crab was used originally for the first sketch, but not so much for this this surgery session here. So I start sketching. Not much to comment on here as usual, except this is the most difficult part, and to get better at sketching there's only one way to do it, again and again. Which actually this Patreon thing that I'm doing has been forcing me to do twice a month, with additional drawing happening on my graphic novel in between, and in the bonus images I sometimes do also. And of course that's a very good thing for me. I get a lot out of this. I think this practice, I've been doing this for like over a year now, and I think the practice that it's been happening here for me has been beneficial. I think I definitely notice an effect since just from 1 year ago. Definitely. Maybe the problem with this one is that I don't have a backstory. I usually have a kind of a story in mind, a scene, but for this one it's just, she's a fairly generic sort of Artemis or Diana goddess type, Greek goddess. The drapery is reminiscent of those Greek statues that you get, and especially with the wind grabbing it and tossing it backwards like that, and the hair as well. Well, maybe not the hair so much, but that's a thing that's more recently happening in anime, with huge hair that flies in the wind. Anyway, here the preliminary sketching is done, and I can finally start to add some colors, but of course not really colors, but gray tones first. Colors come later. I guess I should have just said shading. So at first I was following my original concept with, you know, plain boring lighting coming from above, generic cloudy day or whatever, diffuse lighting. But yeah, because originally, since I was planning to make it a 3D sculpture, lighting wouldn't be a priority in the sketch. I would just need to make a clear sketch so I could see the shape, so I could model it well. But now, since it's going to be a painting, a standalone painting, I had to start thinking about the lighting, and I found it boring, so I decided to change it. But first I shaded her a little bit. I added some of this shading within the flat areas. Those black leather things she's wearing there, they're simply a protection from the bowstring as it snaps forward, both on the chest and on the wrist. Yeah, this is where I changed the lighting. I just inverted her body, which is sort of a quick fix. Of course, I had to additionally go in and edit the shading on her body later, because it's not enough to just invert it. There are some other edits that need to be made too, but doesn't matter that much at this stage anyway, because the shading wasn't really done at all. As you can see, it's hardly. I just really basic shading, just really quick and basic. And here bringing back the black for the leather parts, adding a little glow in the background. But you see the advantage of keeping it a simple grayscale at first. It was really easy to change that lighting right there. Just took just a few minutes. Now I'm using the gradient map tool, one of my favorite tools, to colorize the grayscales. Also really easy. The only tricky part is going to be the skin, which, as I've mentioned before, needs to be more saturated red right along the border between light and shadow, the terminator. Right here. you will be able to see it really clearly in this example, because there's going to be greenish light coming from below and bluish light coming from above, which is going to accentuate that terminator, the reddishness. And if you're wondering why I made the light green, I'm not quite sure. I think it is partly because things that glow at night usually glow green, like bioluminescence, it's usually greenish. I guess that's what I was thinking at the time. I wasn't really thinking it out clearly, but subconsciously. Also, you have these glow-in-the-dark things that I remember when I was a kid. They used to make toys that glowed in the dark, and I don't know if they still have them, but they were kind of greenish blue. And I'm putting a lightly bluish tinted light coming from above, which, as you can see, the sky, even though it's quite dark, it's not completely black. So I'm kind of pretending that there's something, starlight maybe, or a distant moon, or glowing clouds, or northern light, aurora, casting some bluish light, some cold light on her upper parts of her skin. Oh, actually later I did add a moon, but we'll get to that later. And then I just started to add details, textural details, refining the light more and more, which is quite a slow process. Another thing that putting flat colors in from the beginning, either grayscale or colors, and keeping them flat for a while in the beginning, that really helps to separate the layers from each other, which can be a problem. Quite often I notice beginners use very high contrast on every layer, so that if you imagine you have a near layer here, which are the near parts of the crab, and then you have the crab itself that she's sitting on. We can call that her layer. You have her layer, and then you have the far parts of the crab. And if you can imagine all three of those in high contrast with each other, they'd be fighting with each other compositionally. And I see that a lot. And if you start off with flat colors, maybe it's less likely for that to happen. detailing the crab claws here, selecting but not filling the selection, just painting inside the selection. So, and when I select, I actually do it very randomly, very quickly and randomly with the lasso tool, and then getting rid of the selection and erasing, smudging, using textured brushes, going back and forth between these tools. Here you see a textured brush. I'm using I call it Cracks. As you can see, it's based of, I think it's based of mud, dried mud cracks, cracked mud, but I'm not sure. But anyway, that one is a very useful one. Stuff can look like veins as well. And here I'm bending that claw a little bit, bending a few contours here to make a better composition. Yeah, I forgot about the arrows at the beginning. And now it's time to detail out the face a bit more. This hand is too big right now. Later I'm making it smaller. You gotta be careful with the nostrils there. I always try to make them as small and as unnoticeable as possible while still hinting at them. You have to just kind of just barely notice that there's a nostril there from certain angles. Some angles you don't even need a nostril at all, but from this angle I think you do. Now I started working on the hair. Towards the end there, you hardly see any of these shapes at all, because I think I progressively darkened the hair more and more until you only saw the edges of it. And now I'm adding wrinkles to the cloth, detailing out the wrinkles, making them more realistic. Starting off with a lasso selection there, like I often do. I like the lasso, the freehand lasso. It's a great tool for textures like this. And smudging the skin to make it softer and more photorealistic. Okay, now I've decided the image is still boring, and I decided to add a moon. A rather large one, which is actually, I think it is a part of the mythology around Diana. I'm not sure about Artemis. I think Artemis and Diana might be the same goddess with different names in different cultures, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I'm going to make it pink just to really contrast to the green. And it's going to throw a little bit of light on her. And the shape is kind of echoing the shape of a bow also, which is possibly the reason why the ancient people imagined uh, the new moon as a bow used by a goddess. But again, don't quote me on that either. But anyway, this is echoing the shape of the bow and also the shape of the crab legs. So I think it's quite suitable here. I'm using Dodge, color Dodge here, by the way, and soon I'm going to add a little bit of texture, a little bit of moon texture that I googled on the internet. Again, this is a time when I would use the term Terminator. The edge of the shadow on the moon is actually called Terminator by astronomers, and that's where I'm going to add a little bit of photographic texture, as you see here. I'm going to use it as an overlay. Drop it down when I'm done fitting it in the right position and so on. Drop it down to the moon layer, And there it is. Some fairly realistic moon texture there. Customizing it a bit. And after this I'm going to add a very important touch, and that's the glow. Which you can do in several ways. You can use color dodge, or you can use a layer set to color dodge, or a layer set to dodge, or a layer set to screen. Or if you know exactly which color you want, you can even do it manually and just paint the exact color you want. But using color dodge is easier in most cases. And then after that, basically just a lot of polishing and a lot of detailing. A very tedious process, which I cut short a little bit there, because here is the finished one. And as you can see, I'm going to point out a few things that I worked on. I added these contour light from the moon, the pink light, and these flying bits of possibly flower petals, which is another typical anime thing that a lot of people do. I added this Greek pattern here. A friend of mine who is Greek told me that she didn't look Greek enough, so I also darkened her hair for this reason. Again, I wasn't really planning on making her into Artemis from the beginning. It's just that I found a statue to use as reference, and then I gradually sort of started thinking about, okay, I'm gonna make a statue out of this one, and I might as well call it Artemis, like that. That's how that happened. But yeah, and I worked a bit more on the glow. I focused the glow more to one area here instead of having it all over this area. And yeah, that's it. Done. Thank you all for watching. Bye.